everybody, welcome back. I've got an update on a pan that eyeshadow palette challenge that I've got going on my channel this year. So I'm focusing on one particular eyeshadow palette, and ideally by the end of the year I want to have used up every single eyeshadow within the palette. So I will be talking through the shades and sharing some pictures on the progress of each individual eyeshadow in the palette. And the palette is my customised ABH Modern Renaissance and Norvina palette. And it's a bit of an exciting update because I have completely finished off 2 further shades within this palette. So I think I'll do what I usually do with this video. I will put up a picture where we're sort of comparing the progress last month compared to the progress today. I've also got my notepad as well where I tally up all of the uses, and I've also got the comparison photo on my phone to sort of see the progress between last update and today. So if we start with the top row of the palette, the first shade I've already used up, so I won't speak about that one. The next one is called Golden Ochre, and I used this one 18 times since the previous update. Now in the photo it doesn't actually look any different, but in the flesh, whenever I've gone to use this particular shade, I've noticed that there is a nice kind of dip going on in this pan now. I do still think I'm about maybe 2 months away from hitting pan in this shade, but nice to see that there is some visible progress in this particular eyeshadow pan, because this was one that started off basically pretty much from brand new. I hadn't really used this shadow much at all, and the way that I use this is basically just to kind of tidy up around the edges after I've kind of finished with the main look of my eyeshadow. The next shade is called Vermeer. This one already had a pan at the previous update. The pan has gotten a bit bigger since last time. I also used this one 18 times. I mixed this with the shade down a row and to the right. I mixed both of these together and put it all over my lid as a shimmery lid look. It's what I've done for today's makeup look as well. This one I'm hoping to be done with in 2 months' time. Although there's a decent sized pan in it, I don't think this will be an empty by the next update. I think it will take another month on top of that. The next shade along is actually called Base. It's not Buon Fresco. This is my first empty for this month's update. You can see in the previous month's update just how little of this I had left. I had basically eyeshadow just around the very perimeter of the pan, and it was very difficult to pick up some on my brush, so I took a sharp like cuticle tool, scraped some powder, and I managed to be able to completely use up the shade by doing that. It only took me 12 uses since the previous update to completely finish this one off. I finished it off on the 26th of May, and I have replaced this with another very similar shade which I will come on to after I've finished speaking about this entire palette. So that's my first empty, really happy with that one. The shade along is called Incense. It's also not the shade that's written on the palette there. It's not Antique Bronze, it's Incense. This one I used 19 times. The pan has gotten slightly wider. This one I tend to run underneath my lower lash line with the shade below and to the right. I mix those two in together and pop it under my lower lash line. It's a really lovely warm brown shade, really nice shade. The shade along also isn't what's written on the pan there, it's actually Eccentric. This one I only used 4 times. I find this shade and Railgar, which is the very last shade in the palette, those two I find the most difficult to use because they are both incredibly warm, and I feel like they're a little bit separate from the rest of the palette because of just how warm and just how orange and red they are. I have put some of it on today though, because the top that I'm wearing is a very warm like terracotta burnt orange top, so I feel like it works really well, but I do rely more on the other warm browns in the shade compared to Eccentric. So yeah, only used that one 4 times. And then the last shade on the row I used 16 times. This is Cypress Umber. It's a dark brown shade. The pan has gotten bigger. This one I tend to kind of use on top of a pencil eyeliner to help kind of like smudge out the eyeliner a little bit. I don't think this is a shade though that I'm going to end up using up by the end of the year. I will be very pleasantly surprised if I do. Okay, shade below. Right, first up is Raw Sienna. I had a really big pan on this in the previous update. This pan has gotten even bigger, and I've started to use that same cuticle tool, that sharp tool, to scrape away powder, so it's a lot easier to pick some powder up on my brush now. This one I used 20 times since the previous update. I use this one along with burnt orange next to it as my crease shade every single time that I wear makeup, so I use this really frequently. This one I think should be an empty by the next update. I should hopefully have finished this one off at the start of next month. So the shade next to it, Burnt Orange, this one I also use 20 times because I mix it in with Raw Sienna. The pan has gotten bigger as well, but there is slightly more product in this one compared to Raw Sienna, and I don't think this one will be an empty as well. I think it will just be Raw Sienna. I think Burnt Orange will need another month to be completely finished up with. We'll skip the third shade, Primavera. This one I have previously finished off. So the one next to it is called Summer. This one I use 19 times. I mix it in with Vermeer on the row above and to the left, mix those two in together and pop that all over the lid. This one, the pan has gotten so much bigger. There was a small pan in the previous update, but it's now a really big pan. I don't think, however, that this one will be an empty by the next month's check-in. I think this will probably require another month to use up, but you can see that there are 3-4 shades in this palette that I'm really close to finishing up. I should finish up in the next sort of like 2 months, so that's quite exciting. I used that shade 19 times. The shade Along, this is the second empty since the previous update. So this one is called Dreamer. It's not Venetian Red. Dreamer is from Norvina. It's a beautiful, shimmery, pure, warm gold colour. Absolutely beautiful. One of my favourite shades to wear. I would wear Vermeer and, nearly said Red Ochre then, nope, Vermeer and Summer together. And then I would put some of Dreamer on my outer corner. So Dreamer was also one that I used basically every time that I wore makeup. This one took me 10 uses to finish off since the previous update. Finished it off on the 25th of May. And I do just want to say here, actually, in my Project Pan update video, I will link it if you've not seen it, I did say that I have been using MAC Patina and Woodwinked a lot more frequently last month than I had done in previous months, and it would be a little bit clear when I talk about the update for this palette. So in this palette I now only have 2 shimmer shades, and they're very light shimmer shades. They're quite kind of similar to each other. I don't have a darker shimmer that I like to wear in like the outer corner. So what I do now is that I use either Patina or Woodwinked or both of them, and I pop that on the outer corner. So that's why I'm wearing those 2 shades more frequently. Today I've only used Woodwinked. So because I don't have like a darker gold or bronze or brown shimmery shade from within this palette now, that's why I'm now using Patina and Woodwinked a bit more regularly. Okay, back to this palette. The next shade, the penultimate shade on that bottom row, is called Warm Taupe. I used this one 19 times since the previous update, and like with Golden Ochre, there doesn't seem to be much difference in the pictures, but this one also has a really good dip going on in it now. Again, I don't think I'm going to hit pan by the next update. I think it will be the month after that I'll hit pan in this one. And this one I like to mix in with Incense in the row above and to the left to go under my lower lash line. And then the last shade in the palette is called Railguard. This is a very warm dark orange shade. I mix this in with Eccentric in the row above and to the left. This one I've only used 4 times though, but this is another shade, like with Eccentric, that I find that bit more difficult to wear because it is a bit more of a standout colour in comparison to the other shades within this palette. So happy with the updates on that palette. There are 2 empties since the previous update, and I'm hoping to have finished off Raw Sienna by the next update, and then it should hopefully be in the update after that Burnt Orange, Vermeer and Summer. So because I used up base in the palette that I've just spoken about, I need another sort of like matte ivory beige kind of shade as part of my routine. So I have decided to include into this challenge a shade from the Revolution Reloaded Hypnotic palette. So it is this one here. I've used this one 8 times since rolling it into this project. There is a really big pan already in this shade. These shades I think are fairly easy to kind of 1 hit pan on and 2 use up. So I think I could finish this off in 2 to 3 months, and then once I've done that I will use again a very similar shade but from my Vive Essentials palette. I was also thinking when I finished off Dreamer whether to start to roll in these 3 shimmer shades here into the project, but because I've got Patina and Woodwinked in my project pan, and they were more expensive than the cost of this palette, I would rather focus on those shades ahead of these ones. So I'll see what kind of progress I can make on Patina and Woodwinked. Patina I've already got a pan in, so yeah, we'll see what the progress on those two shades is like. I might at some point start bringing in these three as well, but to be honest, I'm not too bothered about finishing off this palette this year. The primary aim is to finish off the Modern Renaissance and Norvina palette. So that was the update. I'm pretty happy with my progress on all of the shades that I'm working on at the moment. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you did like it. If you are doing something similar this year, please do let me know the progress of your project pans and your pandas, eyeshadow palettes, whatever they may be. Thank you once again. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you again very soon for the next one. Bye.